What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball, New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow middle brother, Garrick Raphael. What's poppin' with you, bro?
What up, bro? Man, it's getting rainy outside now. Like, they got the weather machine on shuffle. Cause like 2 days ago, there was the freeze advisory, right? And then like I went outside today and it was like 85 degrees and it was raining,
Okay.
but then it also might freeze. Like, I'm just like, you know what? This is what living in New Orleans is. I might go outside with like one rain boot on, one pair of Jordans, some shorts, a long sleeve tee with a poncho, an umbrella, and a daiquiri, and go outside. And that might be what I need to do because it's all shuffle, bro. And I don't. It's especially with my allergies. Like it's all bad. It's all bad. But at least we're getting into close to the All-Star break, so we got competitive basketball games going on. Joel Embiid scoring 1 million points in basketball games, and Karl Anthony Towns scoring a little less than 1 million points, but then getting benched at the end of the game. And it's just a lot going on. Coaches being shuffled in and out. I mean, we are in the fulcrum of the basketball season, and so it is live, it's popping, and I'm enjoying it, man. So how's everything on your side?
Everything is blessed on my end. I cannot complain. The closer we get to Mardi Gras, the better I will be. So,
Yes, sir.
with that being said, before we get too far into the show, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter, on X, on IG, on TikTok. That's NO Basketball, no E. Make sure you're liking the episode below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Shout out to our winner early today. Won some tickets to the OKC game tomorrow night. Y'all make sure y'all have a good time. Hopefully, the Pels give y'all something to enjoy. So, there's been a game since we last talked. The Pelicans played the team from Utah and beat them resoundingly 153-124. Set a franchise record in points in a game, set a franchise records in assists in a game. Zion set a career high in assists in a game. The Pels really led with this one and really took over and dominated from start to finish. It was one of their more impressive showings so far this season. Even though they gave up 124 points, the game was way out of hand before any of that happened. And at the end, you saw Nazi just trying to get him up like he was in Diamond Park. But let's go back to the start of the game. So Willie Green says, prior to the game, because they had a couple days off, something that they wanted to focus on was getting the ball into Zion's hands early. Finally. Listen. The times when you've seen Zion Williamson the best, and again, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I could see visually that Zion is in a much more conditioned, shaped as of January 25th, 2024 than he was to start the season. So that might play into it. I understand that Brandon Ingram has done so much during Willie's tenure for him to trust him and trust his skill set and what he's been able to do as a leader. But there's just something different about Zion when he has the ball in his hand. I've said from the very beginning, the biggest knocks on Zion is his effort, consistency with effort, his ability to rebound, his ability to block shots, even though he's so strong and big. But from the core, and he said it from the core, he made the Zion twos with the impression that I am a point guard. And the thing that I do best is play point guard. That's what I did in high school. He did a little bit of it at Duke, but that's when I'm at my best. And from what you've seen, and I know it's been a short sample size, the times when Zion's been the most impressive, and it's funny that the All-Stars were named today, because when Zion was named last season, first team starter in the All-Star game, it was right after he went through a stretch of being the point guard for the team, right? That's when you see him the best. And so in this game, he looked extra spry. Like the first possession, like there was an extra bounce in his step outside of the one-handed dunk, which was just that was a 2K animation. Aerial Wizard on Hall of Fame from all those that who partake. he was just playing with a different pace that you've seen him play all year long. And even in the post game, he said, man, that my teammates trusted me to be point Zion. And you could see him feel natural in that setting. And so talk to me about like what you see from that now that the team seems to be diving more into that as a game moving forward. And what does that mean for the Pelicans as they continue throughout the season?
Well, if you're a person that believes in coincidences, the day after Willie Green says that they're going to put the ball in Zion's hands, the Pelicans just so happen to score a franchise record in points and a franchise record in assists. I don't know if that's a coincidence. I don't know if that's like, the universe speaking, if it just aligned into that right then and there. And it may not be anything, right? But I think that there is a little bit of poetic justice that happened, the day after Willie Green announces that they're going to get a ball to Zion more. Listen, Zion is noticeably in much better shape. I mean, there were times on the floor against Utah, and I think this was one of those times where Zion was like, you know what? This has to be a Zion game. And it doesn't necessarily, we've seen it with Zion. Zion can get 40 if he wanted to. Like, that's something he can do. But the best Zion Williamson's games is that where he's a dual threat, where he's on the ball and can get the ball to others when you build that wall because he's such a willing passer. And then there's also the fact that like he can just like score on you at will. And those are those Zion games where you're like, that's a top level, top tier superstar. And, when he's involved and he's getting the ball and making those plays, like Zion, for a lot of the things that we talk about that make Zion, this guy is an emotional player. Like you see it when he dunks the ball, he's like screaming at the top of his lungs, roaring. When people like get into it with him or his teammates, like he's chirping back at him. Like he's not, he's quiet, a little bit off the floor, like, outside of the things that everybody knows, but he's quiet. Like he's a quiet guy. And then like you see him get on the floor and he turns into this different person. And I think when you incorporate him on the ball and you let him play kind of the game that he plays, it pours over into all the aspects of him. It pours over into his effort, into his attitude, and into the defensive end, right? Like we saw him in that Charlotte game when the Pelicans had everything going and clicking again, he was locking LaMelo up in the corner for highlights and things like that. And so like it spills over into those other aspects of the game. And I tweeted about it, like that one hand catch, that one hand alley-oop, if you squint it and kind of turn your head a little bit, it looked like Duke. It looked like Duke Zion. Like he was flying up and down the floor and beating people to the spot and beating people to the rim and pointing up in the sky because he wanted the alley, and the guys were looking for him. And I think one of the things that I saw that was very telling about Brandon Ingram. So, when Zion has the ball, this means that Brandon Ingram takes a secondary role in the offense, right? Because Zion is on the ball, it doesn't mean he's going to score more points than Zion or less points than Zion. Like he might go for 30 in that secondary role. We saw when he went 7 for 11 from the 3-point line. Like he was rolling, the points were scoring, but Zion was on the ball. And so you see this with Brandon Ingram. There was a couple plays that I saw, and I'm not going to lie to you. Trey Murphy missed him one time wide open on the elbow, and you could see his body language kind of change a little bit. Like he would slump the shoulders and things because, again, Brandon Ingram is a prideful guy in a contract year and is a complete bucket and can do things on the court that a lot of other people can't. But like you said, Zion is a little different, but you saw it. But I did see, and credit to Brandon Ingram, there was at the end of the first quarter, with the time clicking down, Pels were about to take the last shot. Brandon Ingram gave the ball to Zion and parked in the corner. Now it led to like Jordan Hawkins not getting a shot off and everything, but it shows a willingness to buy into this role. And Brandon Ingram had a stretch in like the third quarter where he was absolutely phenomenal. He was hitting passes. He was getting people involved. He was hitting his shots. He was going to the rim and scoring. Like there was a stretch where he took over and it was like, okay, get this lead from 15 to 25, and it was all BI. So like there is plenty enough time in the game for for everybody to get theirs, especially when Zion is on the ball, because as great as Brandon Ingram is and as the strides that he has taken as a playmaker, Zion is a born playmaker. He is a born point guard. He is a gifted passer. That is what he does. He is looking for guys first. Zion had 8 assists in the first half, and really could have had like 9 or 10 or 11, really, because of people missing shots. And with Zion on the ball, you see CJ getting off more because he's more catch and shoot and in rhythm because Zion is looking for him. And I just think the offense runs a lot better with Zion on the floor. You saw it against Utah, and you saw the way he was able to attack, pick his spots. And the most difficult thing about guarding Zion is because he can pass and make those, be a willing passer. But this guy can score at will. And when you relax off of him because he has 8 assists and 2 points in the half, and then you relax, you're like, okay, he's in a playmaking dish. By the time you realize what has happened, Zion and hit 3-4 right at the basket layups and dunks and things. And so I just think that it's a glimpse into what the Pelicans offense could be against Utah. You saw a lot of things work really well for the Pels, and it spilled over defensively. Again, they gave up 124, but a lot of it was in garbage time. They were all over the Utah Jazz, who had been playing pretty well coming into that game. And so I just think that it was a microcosm. Listen, Zion, really has had to see some things. He has had to see the light of Jordan Hawkins. He has had to see the light of Trey Murphy. At some point, he had to see the light of Zion at the with the ball in his hands, and I think we saw it come to fruition against the Jazz.
Right, and so when I say finally, I mean because this is the best version of the team. Because if you take any still image, maybe from any game that Zion's ever been in, at some point in the game, there are 3 or 4 or 5 people on the defense looking and trying to stop Zion. That is a Giannis, that is a Jokic, that is an MB type level of concentration for the defense, where everyone on the team, be damned, we are not going to let this person score. That is a different type of gravity. And would you rather Brandon Ingram pass to Zion, who's sitting in a corner or sitting in the dunker spot or sitting somewhere nowhere near the basket, or the guy with that kind of gravity passing to a Brandon Ingram who shot 40% from 3? And that's what I mean by this is better for everyone. And to your point, there are going to be nights like that game where Zion didn't outscore anybody. Like CJ had 33 points. JV had the same amount of points as Zion. But playing through him just makes the game easier for everyone around him. Like, we're going to get into the shooting on this team, which is wild, because if you would have said this last season, it's crazy how many times we keep saying, if you would have said this last season about this team, but like, it's not necessary that they may be some of the best shooters in the league, but it's the quality of the threes that they are getting, because 4 and 5 guys have to pay attention to one guy or they look dumb if they don't, right? And so in that scenario, it just opens up so much more for the team. Now, we need to have a conversation because Herbert Keyshawn, listen, he's gotten to the point where, like, you watch the games, and if Herb is in one of the corners, you're like, okay, count that one. That is not just from when Herb first started in the NBA, where every time he kind of ducked, every time he shot one, but from like earlier in the season where he was struggling, to the point where you almost think when he doesn't make the corner ones, you're like, well, damn, he's gonna make the next one. And that's a crazy place to be for someone who entered to the league as a non-shooter. Right? We talk about him shooting 40% from the court. He's shooting 40% from the field as a player. He scored 22 points and it looked effortless. Like, I had to look back and was like, Herb had how many? Like that is a sign of a player who is looking to grow and knows what his role is and knows what shots he's going to get, because you have Zion and you have BI and you have all these guys on the court. He practiced those shots in particular, and that is what you want to see out of a player. So talk to me about, like, just Herb's performance and what his ascension, again, his continuous growth offensively does for the starting lineup.
Herb Jones has a Marcus Colston type of vibe to his game, to his personality, to everything. Marcus Colston was never an all-star, never a Pro Bowler, but like, be damned if you ask anybody who was the best receiver on that Saints team or the best, but he was quiet. I tweeted about it in the game. I looked up at the game and I was like, I know the Pelicans are like hooping right now. But like Herb had 18 points at that moment, and I was like, you could not tell. But then you go back and watch, you like, oh yeah, Herb had a fantastic game, and I said it at the end of the game. That might have been the best Herb Jones game I have ever seen him.
I don't know that Cleveland one. That Cleveland
one. And I get it. That Cleveland game was incredible, but that was more of a Herb out of body experience.
Right.
This felt like. This is Herb playing the best Herb Jones game. It wasn't a 30-pointer, it wasn't a 40-pointer. I mean, he was literally in every single perfect right spot. And I think what has made Herb such an intriguing story of growth and commitment to work is that he has now, like, they still try to give a lot of space to Herb. Herb has made it a mission where if you give it Herb space in the corners, he's knocking the shot down. But if it's somewhere else, he's using that space against you. He's setting screens. He's doing dribble handoffs. And a lot of it is like basketball instinct. It's not like set plays where Herb it's like, okay, I see you doing this. Well, I know if you do this, then I need to do that. And before you do this, I'm already making a move to do that. And so now when you're leaving me with space, I'm doing dribble handoffs, and Brandon Ingram has all the space time down the runway to get it to that mid-range. CJ has all of the time in that runway to get it to the mid-range or to that pull-up three that he loves. And you saw all of that on display against the Jazz. And the thing that when we talk about her being a transcendent like draft pick, a lot of draft picks are good and they're skilled and they're talented, but it's very rare to find a draft pick who isn't like focused on the money and focused on the market, and for that draft pick to also be a foundational part of your team, right? Like you look across like that OKC roster, which we'll get into later. Like they got Shea and Chet and Jalen Williams and guys that's like, I don't think they could be playing in like Uzbekistan and they would be trying to hoop. And Herb is so much like that, where Herb doesn't care what his role is at that point. He's doing it. And we talked about the 3-point shooting. I posted a clip of our show in July where I was like, if Herb could get in a PJ Tucker role and hit 40% from the corner threes, doesn't need to be 40 from the 3-point line, silly of me, but doesn't need to be 40% from the total 3-point line, just in the corners. And I keep telling, like, I don't think people understand. Herb is shooting like 65% from the right corner. Not 30, not 35, not 40. He's like 65% from the right corner. And when you talk about, because he's way more talented than PJ Tucker. So when you talk about a guy who's that knocked down in that spot, and that's the thing about Herb, he's not trying to like find some other spot. You know where I'm at when you need.
Well, you saw the pull up midi though.
Well, I'm talking about on the 3-point line. Like he's when he's running in transition, he's going to his spot, and he's going to his spot. If somebody else has the ball, now if he has the ball and he's coming in transition, Herb is one of the best. He is very Josh Hart-esque when he's coming to the lane and hitting with the layup. But he has the reverse. It's like he has all of these like parts of all of these role players, but like he's so much more talented than all of them. PJ, Josh Hart, like he has more talent than all of them, and he's more athletic than all of them. And it's an incredible story that, you know, his 3-point percentage has gotten to the point where like teams can't leave him open in the corner anymore. And it's like you said, it's wild to think about that not from last season, but earlier this season, where people were like, should Herb be like relegated to like seventh man because there's no spacing, and what are the Pels gonna do if Herb doesn't progress? And he has just put the work in. The team talks of the guys on the team talk about him locking himself in the gym and doing those things, and he is really one of the best draft picks in New Orleans basketball history. When you think about where he is and where he like was drafted from, second round, like afterthought. And this guy from day one, Willie saw that this guy needs to be a starter. And since the time he hit the starting lineup, he has been all defense. He has been increasing his points per game. He has increased his 3-point percentage. He's increased his playmaking and ball handling and scoring in every which way. And there's a lot of runway left for Herb to get there. You said the Mikal Bridges arc, and I thought it was like no way possible. But I mean, with Herb's game and the way it's ascending, and how he keeps adding every time, you really don't want to put a limit on where he could be for this team.
For sure. So you go from Herb, and again, like this game could have had multiple MVPs if you just wanted to pick one from the Pelicans. But I would have to give it to CJ McCollum because
absolutely.
Obviously, it's not just the shots. He has 33 points. But it's really like there was a question posed to everyone about like CJ McCollum never being an all-star, and obviously the all-stars are announced today. No Pelicans are on the list. But honestly, if the Pelicans were to have an all-star, or you were to pick a midseason MVP for this team, it would probably be CJ McCollum. Like, he's been the most consistent, even with the collapsed lung. He's been the most consistent from start to finish in terms of coming in the best shape of his life, setting the tone early, the run stopping shot. He's been the veteran that this team desperately needs, but also, and you feel when his presence is not there, but also he's had the hardest transition. You talk about BI transitioning into more secondary playmaker or ball handler when Zion's on the court, but CJ's being asked to be an off-ball player. Like, literally, when you leave BI or Zion on the court at all times, that doesn't leave a whole lot of time for CJ, right? For the CJ pick and roll and for the CJ centric offense. And what did he do? Like, he's only having a career year in terms of 3-point percentage. He's only been the exact fit for what you need out of a combo guard when your primary ball handlers are wings. He's transitioned his game in a way where it fits perfectly for this team. And so he would be my MVP for the season so far, just what's been asked of him and how he's performed up until this point. And so, again, you got to kind of give your hats off to him, because I'm not sure where this team is without a CJ McCollum, both from the on-court production, but also like what he means and what he brings to the team that's still trying to figure out how to win consistently as professionals and what that means of you from a night-to-night perspective, despite all the talent that the roster has.
Yeah, I call him the metronome. He's the metronome of the team. He is the constant professional, constant, you just know what you're getting from CJ. And you mentioned it. He's having a career year from the 3-point line. But what makes his game and his transition so great is that he's having a career low usage rate. Like this is the lowest he's ever been like relied upon as far as like dribble, pound the ball. And he's having a career year because he's literally changed himself, from this ISO centric, bucket getter to he is Klay Thompson with Steph and Kevin Durant on the floor. The shooter, I'm here, I'm knock down shots. But the thing that makes CJ, so important to this team is that he's the guy that gets going early. I said it on the last podcast, like he's the guy when the Pelicans are going through their lulls, CJ is the guy coming down, hitting a contested, tough contested shot, or he's the guy that is pulling up from the timeline. And I think what makes him so special is that he's the attitude of the team. And I don't mean like Najee or like Jose attitude, but like he gives the Pelicans, and listen, Zion and Brandon Ingram are validation in of itself. But he has a validating attitude amongst them. Like, we belong here. We should be on the floor. Now, they have to do it against, some of these better teams. And I think that part of that comes from, Brandon Ingram and Zion in those games. Not so much CJ, but CJ comes in the game and and you feel his presence. You immediately feel what he brings to the team. And he is just a perfect fit alongside of Brandon Ingram and Zion, because he has the attitude of a second player on a team, or the shot confidence of the best player on the team. Like, he believes all his shots are going in, but he has the professionalism and the humbleness to understand like what's in front of him, what the team that he's on, and adjust his game accordingly. So, CJ was absolutely phenomenal. Again, I would 100% agree that he is the MVP of the team this far. I think he and JV have literally just been the rocks of the team, exactly what you would need from your professional vets. And CJ has just been phenomenal. And I tweeted about it earlier in that game, like, maybe it's not a heater. Maybe he's not on the heater. Maybe this is just who he is, because I feel like I've been saying CJ is on a heater all season long. And I think it's time to just understand that CJ is now this catch and shoot 40+% 3-point sniper who can get busy and get in the bag if he needs to.
Right. So you mentioned JV, and I think that's important. There was again another double-double yet again from Jonas Valancuiunas. There was a moment in the game in the second half where JV didn't start. Larry Nance started the second half, and I don't think those minutes went very well. The lead went from like 18 to like 9 very quickly. But again, Willie was asked after the game, like, is that something you're going to tinker with? And they're trying to figure out what's the best match, because that starting lineup is offensively driven and they struggle defensively at times. And so maybe if you take out one of the fourth or fifth options offensively and replace that with a defensive player, maybe that might give you a little bit more balance. But the Pels trade Kira Lewis a week ago. They get underneath the tax. They're owed $18 million. There's rumors around Jared Allen and Daniel Gafford and Claxton and Capella. But really, if you look at how the Pels are constructed, the only way you're getting one of those players is if you're trading Jonas Valancuiunas. And we just talked about it. He's been a metronome for the team, like literally never misses games, can always get a double-double. When used correctly, he can be one of the top centers in the league. So my question to you, like, rim protection is an issue. We see it with the middle pick and roll. We see it with the lack of size from Larry Nance. You just need a more athletic defensive minded center. But do you think it's more of a let's try to trade, maybe an equal trade, maybe we lose the trade a little bit, but it fits a little bit better with JV? Or do you think it's more, can we find someone on the buyout market? Can we find someone who's going to cost nothing? Like, can you find just another guy who could break in case of emergency because JV's too valuable to lose?
Absolutely. I would not entertain trading JV at all. And listen, getting underneath the tax this year, what it does is it allows the Pelicans to also kick that repeater tax if in the event that they need to get into that back a year, right? Because you pay it twice, that's your repeater tax. You don't pay it this year, so then you don't pay it next year either. You would pay it the year after. So it was smart business move, right? And to get that $18 million, I understand, asset management and everything, but people were getting upset about having to trade a couple of second round picks to get off of a good player in Kira, or good draft pick in Kira, and meaning where he was drafted, a lottery pick. And for me, I've always said, if you whiff on your first round pick, but you find Jose Alvarado or you find Herb Jones, then you just consider that your first round pick. Call it a day, get underneath the tax. I understand, the $18 million to the owner looks ugly and it sounds bad, but listen, the Pelicans are gonna have to pay the tax eventually. Them and Charlotte are the only two that's not there. That hasn't paid it. It's gonna happen eventually. I don't know if this is the year that they will do it, but it's gonna happen eventually. Now, JV absolutely would not trade JV. JV has played himself into an integral part, and part of it is not even playing himself into an integral part of the team. It's being available. Like I'm thinking about the games missed by CJ and the games missed by BI and Zion and Trey Murphy, and I'm like, could you imagine if like JV wasn't there? Like I just, or if they had like a big that's not as good as JV,
so
or
Cody
a guy
Zeller
who was just
would be in the rotation.
No, I don't want to. No,
well,
I don't. No, not that. Anything but that.
Okay.
But no, I just think it. I don't want to talk about JRE. I got flamed on Twitter for talking about JRE. They got a hive. JRE has a hive. And I'm not trying to stir the hive. But yeah, JV has played himself into an integral part of this team. And I think that, listen, rim protection is obviously an issue. It was an issue last season. It was an issue in the offseason. It was an issue in the preseason. It was an issue in summer league. And it's an issue now. It's been an issue for the Pelicans for a while. So I think, like, listen, I watched the Celtics. I can't think of this guy's name, but the Celtics went and got this, like, the G League leader in blocks. They didn't trade anybody. They didn't, like, go sign anything crazy. And those are the type of things that I think the Pelicans need to be doing. You don't need a superstar shot blocker. Right. You need a guy that's going to be tall and just, like, stand at the rim and deter shots for a couple of minutes, because this is not a guy who's going to play 25, 30 minutes a game when you have JV. Obviously, Larry Nance is going to play. This is a guy who, if JV is not available, if the foul trouble is there, or if the matchup is there, then you play him. You go find a guy like we always talk about, Bismack Biyombo, or somebody like that who can get on the end of the bench, but if you need him, can play 10 to 15 minutes and give you some kind of rim protection, some kind of rim deterrence when you need him. Those are the type of moves I would be looking for if I were if I were in charge of the Pelicans. Trading JV, I mean, he is just, it's such a luxury to have a guy who is a goddamn bear on the offensive boards and defensive boards and can go for 25 and 12, but understands that he doesn't need to do that every time. It's just very difficult to find professional like role players and guys who are really good, but are as humble and understanding as CJ and JV. Like, these guys are coming in and understand that they could do a lot of other different things, but they don't need to do it. And they are stars in their role. And they're really freaking good. And in the event that you do need JV to go for those amounts, he can. And he has shown it to you this season. So I just think that you can't trade JV. He is such a pillar of the Pelicans, such a Iron Man. And that's just a guy that you want to have on the team. And so they need to be looking, if it was me, looking at the fringes, looking at the buyout market, looking at G League and see who's the second leading shot blocker there. Find a very cheap way to get some rim protection. Jared Allen has played out of his mind since Evan Mobley has gone down. He is balling, but I don't think changing out what JV brings on a daily basis, what he does on a daily basis, and changing that for Jared Allen, I don't know if that lifts the ceiling the way that people really think that. Now, you know, he's great and he's a good shot blocker and he does things differently, but he's not a guy you can dump down to if Zion and Brandon Ingram are out, dump down and watch him go to work and go for 25 to 28 points in the game. So I think I wouldn't trade JV. That's my opinion. I don't think they should. And honestly, I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either. So you made a statement at the beginning of this year, which at the time probably seemed a little bit crazy, but you said, similar to how Trey Murphy said that he thinks he and Hawk are the best shooting duo in the NBA now. You said the Pelicans had the best stable of shooters in the NBA. Well, they're still only 23rd in three-point attempts, but they're third in the NBA in three-point percentage, which, again, if you would have asked me this last year, I would have said, ain't no way. But then you look at it and you're like, well, they might. have the best stable shooter. You got CJ McCollum who's shooting 45% from three on 8 attempts per game. He's third in the NBA in three-point made so far this year. Then you got Trey Murphy, who's really not looked like Trey Murphy yet so far this year. Oh, by the way, he's still shooting 37% from three. So, like, his slump is like what people aspire to be. Then you got Jordan Hawkins, who's shooting 39% from three. He has more three-pointers made than any other rookie, and it's not even close. Like, he's in the top 50 players in three-pointers made this year. And oh, by the way, Matt Ryan hasn't played since like November, but is shooting 47% from three on 68 attempts. So, like, I know it's the shot quality. We just talked about that because the looks are wide open. But, like, honestly, is there another team that has another shooter? I'm not saying scorers or a higher offensive ceiling, but just a group of people that you can place on the court next to your gravitational pools that are the Jokic's, the Embiid's, the Zions, the BI's of the world.
Well, you know my answer. Hell no. Hell no, they don't. Hell no. And I said this side of the Bay Area, and then them boys went up to Golden State and shot the ceiling off in Golden State. And so that kind of put that to rest for this season. No, I think the Pelicans and like it's crazy because like that's the stable of shooters. But like Brandon Ingram has gone 7-11 from the 3-point line in a game. Like if he gets it going, he's not a awful, terrible, leave him wide open shooter. JV can get the shots up. Najee
shoots 40% from three.
Herb shoots 65% from the right corner. Like JV is the Pelicans, they have shooters. And the particular stable of shooters, the 4 guys you mentioned, Trey, Hawk, CJ, and Matt Ryan. I think that when Matt Ryan gets back, again, more difficult conversations that will need to be made. There's already seems to be one. Shout out to Jose, but there seems to have already have one that has taken that conversation has been had. I just don't think it should be it. You're starting to see Willie kind of go Zion with Hawk and Trey, like they're both on the floor with Zion. And the crazy part about it is that you could do it with BI too and put CJ and Matt Ryan. Like you should always have an alphabet boy, a defender, and 2 shooters and a fifth starter, whoever you want. And just keep bringing them in that way because these guys, the 3-point attempts, you definitely want them to get up more 3-point attempts. And they are. Like the last 4 or 5 games, they've been shooting like 40 plus 3-pointers per game. But you don't have to shoot a lot of 3-point attempts if you're like shooting 45% as a team. But because you've made 4 in a row or 5 in a row or whatever the case is between Trey, Hawk, and CJ, like the lead has gone up from whatever, from 10 to 20 and the game is over and now those guys are sitting down. So like the 3-point attempts are a weird way to tell a story because like the Pelicans, you see what the 3-point percentage is. They're making all of the shots that they take, so you don't have to take as many if you're making most of them. And so like they have found a groove. The rim has to look like the Lake Pontchartrain right now because they are just tossing it up and it's going in. And it's really like across the board how shooting has gotten into this team. And it could be if it's James Borrego's influence or if it's just Willie Green and the Pelicans deciding like we need to modernize this offense. But, JV's commitment to like changing his game and shooting a 3-point has helped this team so much. It's just timely shots to be made. And these guys are making them. They're taking them. And the thing about, the guys who are shooting like CJ, Hawk, and Matt Ryan for sure, they get them up. They don't care if you closing out. They don't care how far they are from the 3-point line. And like Trey is starting to a little bit kind of get out of that and shoot the shots that he's supposed to be shooting as opposed to like passing up those threes. And we all know when Trey Murphy is right, like he is another guy that from the logo, right? And so just that ability to have like guys who don't need to dribble at all, I think that's what make this stable such lethal because they're not like shoot off the dribble guys like CJ is obviously, and Hawk and them, they can do it. But like those guys, I'm talking about one pass before you even take one step to close out, it's in the air on the way to the rim. And just having that ability with Zion and Brandon Ingram and JV, that amount of gravity. I mean, it is. If they're going to start putting the ball in Zion's hands more and they're going to employ these shooters, you're going to see a lot more historic nights in the Smoothie King Center, coming soon.
Well, one way to get more three-point shots up is to play more three-point shooters. We talked about this summer. The Pelicans don't really value the three-point line like that. So what did they do? They drafted, so that's a very cheap commodity. They drafted the best shooter of the draft, and they picked up Matt Ryan on a two-way contract, right, to go along with the other players that you have. And so, again, I don't think it's necessarily a surprise that they learn how to play off of their talent and their gravity and then surround them with talent that matches and fits this particular offense. So we talk about offense, and the Pelicans have quite the weekend coming up. So tomorrow night, they are in the Smoothie King Center versus OKC in a huge matchup. This matchup is big for a lot of reasons. OKC's are up there right now. I think they're in second in the West. But if the Pelicans win this game, not only do they cut that lead from I think 5.5 to 4.5, but also they win the season series, which is going to be important as you go down this stretch. There's still 38 more games to go. You go down this stretch, all these teams in the West, it's going to come down to tiebreakers and series and conference records and all that stuff. You want to hold as many of those as you can. But OKC's been playing incredible this season. Shea is an MVP candidate, hands down. He is hooping in a way that it's fun to watch, and it's good to see people who maybe don't watch the NBA every single night, but recognize his talent, even though he's a quiet guy playing in a small city or a small environment, but seeing how this small guard is playing in a way that he's playing like he's a bigger player, like a Giannis or a Zion and things like that. And so what you see off that is somebody who's averaging over 30 points per game. But Aaron Summers reported this earlier. His worst field goal percentage versus any team in the league is versus the Pelicans. So tell me what you're looking for out of this game.
I bet De'Aaron Fox is somewhere like, yeah, I bet.
Tell me what you look at this game. Tell me what the keys are in a huge game that the Pels need and the OKC kind of needs as well to figure out that, hey, we stack up versus everybody else and some of these stronger teams in the West.
Yeah, this is a big one. This is a big game. Shea is playing out of his mind, and it's gonna be all hands on deck to guard that guy. But I think one of the things that makes OKC so good is Jalen Williams, man. That guy is a find. He is a hooper's dream. He has a lot of like Paul George, a lot of Jaylen Brown in him, where like he's playing next to the guy, but like, whoo, boy, like, man, that guy can go. And so it's gonna be difficult. I think if you see a lot of Jalen Williams and Shea as the game goes on, them on the floor, I think you might see a lot of Herb and Dyson on the floor together, because those guys are a load offensively. And so you're gonna have to combat them defensively, and not what we always talk about. Don't leave Dyson or Herb on SGA Island. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because we have seen, those guys be excellent defenders, and guys, especially those crafty guys. We talked about this off the pod, right? Like the Lucas, the Devin Bookers, the Shea Gilgeous-Alexanders, like even Ant, right? Even Ant to a certain extent. When it's not like those fast guys who like the Pels can stay in front of and use their length and athleticism to kind of get around. Those crafty guys give the Pelicans a lot of problems because of the drop coverage with JV and things like that. Like they can hit those mid ranges. It's just a lot. So you want Shea playing in a box, playing in with multiple eyes on him. But I think if the Pelicans can push the pace, if they can get downhill, I know Chet is a phenomenal talent, but again, he's very slim. And JV and Zion, we talk about like always having like a matchup. matchup advantage against a lot of teams. I feel like we say this a lot, but the Pelicans just have two bruisers. And I think if you put Zion at the top of the key, like you did against Utah, and give him the ball and force Chet, to come out and play and have to decide if like he's gonna be on Zion or if they're gonna put Lou Dort there, then like is Chet gonna help off when he gets by and leave JV in the dunker position or at the 3-point? Like, make them make a lot of decisions. They're a very young team with a young coach. Make them make a lot of decisions when they are a great team when they are playing from ahead. But they tend, like recently we've seen them lose a couple of games where they just kind of let the game get away from them. They just kind of like sleptwalking. Before they know it, they're down 10, down 12, and they have to like claw back. So I think if you keep that pressure on them, keep the threes flowing, because I do think that those are going to be open, because they're going to have to help a lot with Chet having to deal with Zion and JV. Get the shooters in the game, get those guys going early, and let Zion handle the ball. I think the Pels match up well against OKC just as much, as long as they don't leave Dyson and Herb on Shai Alexander's island by themselves.
Yeah, I'm interested to see after another 2 days off how the defense is connected. Because to your point, sometimes it's feeling out the game, knowing when to double, knowing when not to, when to show and go, and things like that. And like in these big games that the Pelicans kind of flopped on, that's been the biggest area for me, of just leaving stars on islands and the defense just not being on the same page. As far as like the two teams, they're very similar, right? They both like to play in the paint with Shai and with Jalen Williams, and with Zion and with BI and with JV, and they both like to pick off the wide open shoot. Neither one is ever going to lead the league in 3-point attempts, but they're both in the top 3 in 3-point percentage because their looks are so wide open. And so you said it, you got to win the glass. Like OKC is 28th in rebounds because they're slim. JV and Zion, they need to dominate in that area, because the Pels, just like OKC, are top 10 in both offense and defense. So there's not a lot of holes in their team. You're going to have to play your best in order to get at what, because you're going to get their best on the other end. So you go from that matchup to a back-to-back in Milwaukee. First Giannis, Dame Lillard, and the Fighting Doc Rivers. We've seen Giannis on an island before. It has not gone well.
No, not at all. Not great.
What are your thoughts on this back-to-back matchup where, again, the Pels can't really afford to drop all of these big games because they were in 5th. Now the Suns are rising, and now you're going back and forth. You got to string together some wins in order to stay in that top 6, and even if they hope to get into that top 4 in the West.
Yeah, what a schedule. It is going to be tough in Milwaukee. They have a new coach. They're going to be playing for, Doc Rivers, and they're going to be amped in that. And the Pels are, what I expect is going to be a tightly contested game against OKC, going to be coming off that. First thing first, you hope to see everybody play, right? I think everybody needs to play in that back-to-back.
Well, the Bucks are coming off a back-to-back too versus Cleveland, so maybe Dame or Giannis sits. Who knows?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. We'll see. I did not know that they were coming off a back-to-back. So again, you would love to see everybody from the Pelicans play. But I think if everybody's gonna play, you know what? I'm gonna say something, and we'll see. I would love to see Zion be like, I have Giannis. I would love to see it. Okay. Again, Zion is not the greatest defender, but I think these are the games that, like, if Zion wants to be, we've seen it. We've seen Ant pick up Brandon Ingram. We've seen LeBron say, move out the way, I got this guy. Like, you've seen, like, the best two-way players decide to do it. And Zion talked about loving defense, and he's looked a lot better conditioning-wise, a lot better. I just like to see him get a chance. Like, Herb, listen, you had Shai last night. Giannis is a different problem. Obviously, not by himself. Again, don't leave him on the island. But for him to say, I got that guy tonight, I would love to see that from Z. I don't know if it's going to happen. I doubt it. I don't know if Willie wants Zion guarding Giannis off a back-to-back. I don't know if that's something he would want. But it would just be nice to see Zion say, you know what? To hell with it. I got Giannis tonight. Everybody help get around me, but I think that would set a tone a little bit and give the team a second breath of air on a back-to-back. But I think it's gonna be tough. It's tough to win in Milwaukee anyway. Now they're not really good defensively because they have Dame and Malik Beasley, and I think CJ and Brandon Ingram need to take advantage of that, go at those guys over and over and over again. But of course, they got Giannis and Brook behind them, two all-world defenders who are both 7 feet and above. So it's gonna be tough. You know, the wall is gonna be there for Zion, but I think if they're going to go into this with Zion being point Zion is such a smart basketball player and a gifted passer to where I think that they could use some of that wall stuff against them and get some of those guards scrambling, trying to those smaller guards trying to close out on like a guy like Trey Murphy or a guy like Brandon Ingram or a guy like Jordan Hawkins. I think that they could get some threes that way and knock some of those shots down. But it's gonna be tough, man. It's gonna be really tough to go up there and win a game against a team who is looking to rebound and kind of take off on the second leg of their season now that they have a new coach.
Right. I go back to Zion's interview with Drewski, of all people, where he said, "What's next for Zion?" This was 3 years ago. Zion said he wanted to be the defensive player of the NBA. Here's your opportunity. I 100% agree with you. I think at some point, if the Pelicans ever want to be a title contenders, Zion's going to have to be a plus defender, and I think he has the ability to do so. He has every trait that you need: quick feet, agility, speed, strength. There's no reason why, other than conditioning, he can't be a plus defender. And I agree. I think it's going to take moments in games like this where you rise to a challenge and you bring everybody along with you. So with that being said, that's all we got for you today. Hell of a weekend coming up in terms of Bells basketball. What you got left for the people, Garrick?
As always, you never know what people are going through, so give someone a smile today. This is a tough weekend of basketball, but it should be good. Like, this should be some high level basketball, and the Pelicans team should be excited to be a part of that and to get in there and play some high level basketball against OKC and the Bucks. So as always, follow myself at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at NO Basketball No E. That's on Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you get your social medias. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys next time.